Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain, and we look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking at Kansas Farmer from 14 September 1918. And this is continuing our series on interesting war items. This is part 6. So Interesting War Items is like a series that they had in the newspaper itself. And so we're just reading through them. It's a combination of things really, but it really shows the amount of propaganda that was necessary back then. So they're trying to find positive things to say in general, but they go a little too far sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, let's see what we are in for today. So, interesting war items. Only persons in the military service who are an integral part of the organization flying a service flag should be represented on this flag. Oh, I'm not sure what they mean by that. Who are an integral part of the organization flying a service flag should be represented on this flag. So if you, like for example, the Red Cross flag, like if you don't work for the Red Cross, you shouldn't be flying it. Is that what they mean? Persons who have no personal connection with the organization should not be represented merely because of some relationship to other persons who are members. This is the rule with regard to representation on the service flag of any organization, whether it be a church, club, lodge, society, community, or business concern, as given by Lieutenant Colonel Nathan William McChesney, Judge Advocate of the Central Department of the National Army, in answer to an inquiry from Reverend Joseph B. Cherry, pastor of the Presbyterian Church at Hubble, Nebraska. Okay, what organization were they talking about? Since the stars on the flag indicate to the world how many persons have gone forth from that home or that family or that organization into the country's military or naval service in this war, Mr. McChesney says, it is manifest that the organization ought not to claim credit for a greater contribution than it has actually made to the nation's cause by placing stars on its flags for persons who have no direct connection with it. Oh, interesting. No, I knew that they did this in World War II. I did not know that they did this in World War I. So basically, if you had a child or like a spouse or something, some person in your family who had gone off to war, then they would give you a flag that had a star on it. And if you had two members of your family go, then it had two stars on it. And so you could display this flag showing how many people from your household was at war. And that's interesting to me. So apparently there were some organizations trying to put up a flag saying that there were this many people from their organization who had gone, but that not all of them were legit. And so he's trying to kind of calm that down. But that's interesting. So a church, in this case a Presbyterian church in Nebraska, asked about it. I wonder why they would ask such a thing. Can we put 5 stars on the army because I know we only have 4 gone, but the 5th one, he really wanted to go, Is that what they mean? I don't know. That's strange. Okay, moving on. Oh, this one sounds interesting. Learning to dodge shrapnel. I don't think that's really possible, is it? When we came across, I supposed, a fellow over here was just the same as dead, writes a Kansas boy from France, according to the Hutchinson News. But we've been here several weeks, and a good many of us are still able to eat 3 or 4 squares a day and never make a kick, and most of the boys know enough about shrapnel and machine guns to rat hole as soon as they hear them begin to hum. You are usually able to count 10 from the time you hear the report of the gun until the shrapnel bursts. Oh, really? Our sergeant has gotten so that he can be under cover in 5 counts. However, he holds the record by only a small margin, as several of the other boys stepped on his heels as he went into the dugout. I'm not as much experienced along this line yet, but I believe I can pick it up in a very short time. Wow, I sincerely hope you can, honey. That's scary. So they hear a sound, and then they have 10 seconds to get under cover before it explodes. Whew. So rat holes, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, were holes that they dug like trenches, that they would just jump into to get undercover. I think so anyway. And I don't know if you had to crouch into them or if you could stand up in them, but although if you could stand up completely, then it probably wouldn't be very effective because then you couldn't get out again. But so it's probably only about chest deep and you'd have to like duck down. That's crazy. I guess in the trenches it makes sense too. Like then there you could stand up. Wow. Like that's frightening. Like if you pick up some crazy skills in wartime, ones that you hope to never have to use. Wow. Eager to return to front. A letter from Corporal John E. Clinton of the U.S. Aero Squadron, published in the Beverly Tribune, says, "We are moved back in an American camp with barracks and real beds after a few months of real active service, right up behind the lines as far as that goes in my part of the air surface. This is a real luxury compared to the hard boards and soft dirt we have been sleeping on, and I am willing to stay a while, but I am sure I want to get back on the job as soon as I can. We have both a YMCA and a Red Cross canteen, and the recreation rooms in this camp sure are swell and the real thing." It's cute. "We also get American tobacco and rations. The best fed soldiers in the world are the Americans." Really? Alright, fine. Actually, that might be true because they came into the war so late that their country had fewer food shortages than other countries. "I have increased my French vocabulary to 7 words now." You know how proud you are of knowing 7 French words. I don't know, like that's just... I'm assuming this person has been there for months, considering how he's complaining about, sleeping on the ground and stuff like that. If you've been there for months and you only learned 7 words, like, that's kind of lame, no offense. I had a goal when I moved to France that I would learn 5 new words a day. And while I didn't always remember them at the end of the week, I remembered more than 3/4, and that was then my goal. I also feel like those weren't the only words I learned in that week, so it wasn't necessarily only learning those 5 words, but it was at least learning 5 words a day. So, like 7 words in months is really, really low. But look how proud he is of that. And at the same time, I understand if you're living in a camp with a bunch of Americans and you never go out. But, I don't know. If I lived in a country, it would really bother me not to at least know a couple of words. Like, I don't know. That's just me, though. All right. Here's hoping we get back on the old job of dodging bombs and swinging monkey wrenches. Okay. I'm not going to really comment on what he has to say, though, except that I'm glad that some of the soldiers would occasionally get a break from being at the front the whole time. I did not know that they had like recreation areas for them set up in the middle of a world war, so I appreciate that. I'm glad they did. I'm glad they had some time to rest a little bit. All right. Address mail carefully. The chief cause of the non-delivery of mail intended for soldiers in the military camps in the United States, according to the First Assistant Postmaster General, is insufficiency of address. Unless letters and packages are addressed to the company and regiment or other distinctive organization, they may be delayed or may never reach the person for whom they are intended. When writing your soldier, be sure to give his correct and complete address and your own return address. This is particularly important at this time when so many new men are being taken into the service and the old units are being transferred to different camps. Yeah, I can see that. Especially when it's so confusing, it's like, it might take weeks for your letter to reach their camp. And by the time it reaches their camp, it might be a different camp. Maybe the person has been transferred elsewhere. So I could see that as being particularly important. All right, lunch between shots. That sounds fun. A special reserve ration for use in the trenches and under first-line conditions in France has been worked out after careful study by the Subsistence Division of the Quartermaster Corps. This ration is being packed in camouflaged galvanized iron tins. Wow. Each container holding 25 rations and weighing about 107 pounds. It consists of hard bread, corned beef hash, roast beef, salmon, sardines, soluble coffee, sugar, salt, and the necessary can openers. The package is hermetically sealed, each container being subjected to water and air pressure before being accepted. This rigid precaution is taken to safeguard the food against poisoning and gas attacks. Makes sense. The reserve ration, as the name implies, is used only in emergencies, as every effort is made to give the men in the trenches hot, freshly cooked food. When this is not possible, the reserve ration will guarantee palatable food at least. Special care is taken in the manufacture of this ration to see that only food of the highest quality enters into its composition. Let's look at that again. Hard bread. Well, so like crackers, like they have kind of a hard bread in Europe as well. So it might have been a European hard bread if they canned it in Europe. Corned beef. All right, corned beef is great on bread, yeah. Corned beef hash. Seems slightly redundant, but okay. Roast beef. Another beef product? Geez. Salmon. Fish. Okay. Sardines, also fish. Soluble coffee. So like instant coffee. Sugar and salt. And the necessary can openers. That is a lot of meat. I mean, did they send that much meat because it was like high calorie and like condensed? Or because you can can a lot of things. Like I would have expected more canned fruit, more like canned vegetables. Like there are some vegetables you can can. Peas and carrots. I buy those in cans. Mandarin oranges, peaches, pears. Yeah, like, why wouldn't they include a single fruit or vegetable? Nothing. No fruit, no vegetables, just meat and hard bread. That is a lot of meat. And coffee. Like, that's all? That's all you get. I don't know. I mean, what if you were a vegetarian? I mean, I know that's probably a silly question, but like, seriously, what if you're a vegetarian? I'm just saying. I feel bad for vegetarians at this moment. Although I doubt there were that many, but you never know. Alright, moving on. Oh, geez. So this one's called The Hellishness of the Hun. I have mentioned this before. For whatever stupid reason, they started calling the Germans Huns. Like, you can just say Germans, you know what I mean? Because the Huns were a group of people from Asia. And Asia is not Europe. Plus, what's more is the Huns actually took over what was then Germany before they left. Like, I don't think that the Germans were even friendly with the Huns ever. I'm just saying. Also, I did a little bit of research on it, and it turns out that the Huns were only a specific group, like identified as a group within like a certain time period. So it's not a group that's around today, but like it's still weird to me calling somebody a Hun when they're so very clearly not even from the same region of the world, like not even the same continent. Like that's a little bit strange, but hey, what do I know? Anyway, so they're probably talking about Germans. All right, let's see what they have to say. That there is nothing too low for Germany to stoop to in order to gain a military advantage has been repeatedly demonstrated in this war. I could say the same of the US. I'm just saying. It is a fact well established both by newspaper correspondence and by official warnings issued to American soldiers that in their recent retreat from the Marne, the Germans tried to kill American soldiers whom they could not face in battle by poisoning food and water. Not only did the Germans leave their infernal machines behind, but poisoned food and water also marked their backward trail, writes Edwin L. James, special correspondent for the New York Times with the American Army. The Germans characteristically have taken time before retreating to poison the water, says Walter S. Ball, staff correspondent for the Providence Journal. In the official warning to American soldiers under the heading Poisoned Food, U.S. Army officers caution their men thus: Abandoned food should be carefully inspected and investigated. Wow, they didn't tell them to throw it away. They did not tell them specifically to throw it away. They told them to carefully inspect it and investigate it. Can you always tell if food's been poisoned? Like, I was under the impression that you can't always tell, so that if you think it might be, not to touch it. I think this is a valid warning if this was a practice that was being followed at the time, or even in like certain regions, that is something that they should be especially cautious of. I mean, if somebody had poisoned a well, you're not going to want to drink out of it. But at the same time, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're thirsty and you don't have any water left, then it's natural to go to the nearest well. So I can see why they needed to be warned. However, I'm not sure if this is true. Yeah, because I have mentioned before that Americans had gotten into the habit of talking so badly about Germans that a lot of the reports that they made about them ended up being not true. Yeah, I'm gonna Google this really quick just to see if there's any truth to it. Alright, I'm looking up, did soldiers poison wells in World War I? Alright, during the 20th century, the practice of poisoning wells has lost most of its potency and practicality against an organized force as modern military logistics ensure secure and decontaminated supplies and resources. Nevertheless, German forces during the First World War poisoned wells in France as part of Operation Albrecht. Okay, so that's been confirmed, yeah? So this is not fake news, this is true. So yeah, it's a good thing that they were warning people, although why they would warn people in the Kansas Farmer. I mean, I'm assuming that they're just reporting that they have warned the soldiers. I'm assuming that the soldiers were warned first. Anyway, alright, moving on. Laundries at Army camps. The War Department announces that laundries are to be provided in all the principal camps and cantonments. The average cost of each will be $150,000. Jeez. The expenditure of $5,754,990 for this purpose has been authorized. The work will be done by the Construction Division of the Army. Power to operate the laundries will be supplied by special powerhouses, which will be erected at the same time. The buildings in each of the larger camps will cost $176,000, while $130,688 is provided for each of the smaller camps. Instructions have been issued to proceed with the work at the following camps: Johnston, Sevier, MacArthur, Las Casas, Devens, Gordon, Dodge, Grant, Pike, Taylor, Greene, Hancock, Shelby, Sheridan, Beauregard, Wadsworth, McClellan, Meigs, something like that, Mills, and Forts Wright and Terry. Okay, how did they do laundry before this? I'm sorry, it's kind of a dumb question. Or is this because electricity is very widely spread, and before that they didn't have electric, like, washing machines? That's probably it, yeah? I mean, electricity had been around for a little while at this point, but it wasn't so long that everywhere would have it, you know? It's like when I was a kid, there was like this big deal about having computers in the classroom, but they only had 2 to 3 computers in a classroom, and in general they just took up space, because you're going to send 2 or 3 kids to work on a computer where the rest of them can't, then it's not very effective, now is it? Whereas today there are kids who get like MacBooks assigned from the school. So I feel like it's kind of that technology progression. In this case, we've gone from having no power. I wonder how they washed them before that. I don't know, like, if anybody knows, like, that's very interesting. Like, I'm assuming that they had like a laundress, or like, maybe a group of people who did the laundry. But without washing machines, like, that would be kind of a big deal. Maybe there were, like, people assigned to work in the laundry. That's probably more likely, actually. So that some of the soldiers always worked in the laundry, you know? And I can just picture them in, like around a really big pot of water, like a swimming pool size, like, oh, full of dirty clothes, like scrubbing against a washboard. So they're upgrading their technology is what they're doing. So I appreciate this. It took them till World War I to do it, but I'm glad it finally got done. Read bulletins at post office. In order that reliable information regarding the conduct of the war may be easily attainable, the Committee on Public Information appointed by the President for the dissemination of official news publishes every weekday, with the exception of legal holidays, a little paper called the Official US Bulletin. This is sent to every post office in the United States to be posted daily in a conspicuous place in the post office building where the public can read it. The bulletin contains interesting items concerning the work of the War Department and the war work of other departments of the government, and is the only publication available to all sections of the country that prints daily the complete and correct casualty lists from our armies overseas exactly as they are issued by the War Department. Although many newspapers give the lists having local interest in their own territory, if you do not see the official U.S. Bulletin at your post office, ask for it. That's good. So that's like a way to get the official information without it just being a rumor that was spread. No, that I like that. I like that. Like, a way of getting official information is definitely a good thing. So, hats off to you. I feel like this one was a little more innocuous and slightly less fake news as some of the other ones we've read. I appreciate that. So thank you very much. Also, there's a lot of mail stuff, so I'll probably put like some sort of letter in the, or some like post office or something in the thumbnail. But this is interesting. Like, the official U.S. Bulletin at the post office, also address your mail carefully, and then the rations, and then the laundry and stuff. Like, it's all interesting information. It's just not necessarily important to us today. But it's interesting to get that perspective. Think of, like, the fact that they are just now installing laundry facilities. So, washing machines, and, you know, I'm assuming they didn't have dryers back then. Maybe they did. I don't know. Or at least like a place to hang up the laundry while it's drying is kind of a little bit crazy to me. Like I said, how did they do this before they had the electric washing machine? I don't think it would have been fun to be a soldier back then. I'm just saying. Also eating a lot of meat. I hope that you were meat eaters. Crazy. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the Microfiche time capsule. I thought that was interesting. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.